This is a Shavehorse, and here's why it's awesome. The Shavehorse lets you instantly grip a piece of work right in front of you, where you can work it with a draw knife or a spoke shave. The work is centered on your body, so you can easily get to any surface, and you're using the large muscles in your shoulders and back, so you can take big, heavy cuts and work for a long time without getting tired. You clamp the work with your feet on the pedal, and you can instantly release it if you need to rotate or reposition the work. The real genius of this system is the harder you pull back with your arms, the harder you push down with your feet. So the work rarely slips, and you get amazing hold. British chair makers, who were called bodgers, actually carried this horse out into the forests of England, where they cut down trees and produced chair parts right there, in the woods. The Shavehorse was an essential part of this operation because it provided rock-solid hold, excellent ergonomics, and was light enough to carry right to the worksite. Today, we're going to build our own version of the Bodger's Shavehorse, and we're going to keep up with the tradition of making these from basic, inexpensive materials. In fact, we're going to make the whole thing from just 2 pieces of construction lumber. Let's go! The Shavehorse is an outdoor, green woodworking tool, so we're going to build it in the backyard. You don't need much for this project. I'm going to do all the work on my lightweight traveler workbench, and I'm going to use a small kit of tools. Just basic stuff that you probably already have. For the lumber, you're just going to need a single 2x12, and I had them cross-cut that at the store. You're also going to need a single 2x4, and that's it for the wood. The hardware is just an eye bolt, 2 lag screws, some washers and nuts, and some screws. There's a complete list in the plans. Start by cutting your 2x4 into 3 equal sections. You can use one of these pieces as a straight edge, along with a tape measure and a speed square, to lay out all your other components on your smaller piece of 2x12. We're packing a lot of parts into one piece of wood, so you need to be precise with the layout. You also need to label all the pieces. Trust me, do not skip this step. The completed layout looks like this. On the left, I have all of my legs laid out in clear, straight stock with no knots. And at the upper right, I have a piece marked waist. Are we throwing this piece away? Oh no, we're using every part of this buffalo. Pick an aggressive saw for these long rip cuts. The lightweight traveler bench makes an outstanding platform for sawing, and you can hold the work steady with nothing but body weight. Soon enough, you'll have a big pile of components ready for assembly. Now I know, that seemed to go awfully fast, but the truth is, I am just that good with a rip saw. I would never cheat and resort to a power saw for this kind of thing. Okay, the truth is, I ended up with southern yellow pine for my 2x12, and that's a super tough wood that's full of resin, which makes it really hard to saw by hand. If you end up with wood like that, I do recommend a power saw for those long rip cuts. If you use a lighter weight wood, like white pine or spruce, you really can do everything with a handsaw. No problem. Next, I'll take my longer piece of 2x12 and turn it into the seat. I'll lay out my baseline at each end, being careful to avoid knots. Then I'll find my leg locations and use the 45-degree angle on my speed square to lay out my sight lines. Your Shavehorse is going to be much more comfortable if you make this middle portion a little narrower. Around 7 or 8 inches is really good. Color in the material you want to remove, and then saw 45-degree stop cuts at either end. Then you can remove all the waste with an axe or hatchet. Notice how I'm gripping the wood high and far away from where I'm cutting, and I've got my right leg positioned back, so I'm not in any danger if I miss a swing. The only place you need to be careful is down by your stop cuts. If you hit those too hard with your hatchet, you could accidentally split the wood you're trying to keep. So you need to work slowly at the ends. You can remove the rest of the waste aggressively, as long as your body is positioned safely. I've removed a lot of wood here, but it only took about 20 minutes. To clean up the ragged edges left by the hatchet, I'm using a screw clamp as a stop, and I've got my seat up on the low bench, where I can grip it between my legs and work those surfaces with my draw knife. You could also use an aggressive hand plane for this. Of course, the next day, it rained all day, so I had to move the project back down to the shop. With the seat done, I could move on to the legs. I'm going to use the same joinery I've used in half a dozen other projects. This is a round wedge tenon in a round mortise. After sawing the shoulders of my joints, I split off most of the excess wood and slowly carved the tenon into a smooth cylinder, testing it with a hole drilled in a scrap of hardwood. If you'd like more detail on making these tenons, I'll link to several videos down in the description. I've made this joint many times, and my tenons don't take long, but the wood below the tenon needs to be shaped into a smooth taper to help wedge the joint into the mortise. This would actually be a great time to have a shave horse, but we can make a temporary shave horse using our low bench. The uneven boards allow me to hold a screw clamp off the end of the bench. Then I can use my waist block as a rest for my stock, which I can hold tightly in the screw clamp. This gives me a perfect working angle for my draw knife. Cutting these tapers is a great opportunity to practice delicate work with the draw knife. You can make deep, aggressive cuts with this tool, but you can also do fine detail work. Here, I'm practicing a smooth slicing motion, where I start toward one end of the blade and skew the tool through the cut. I'm also working very gently here, because I don't want to come out of the cut and then crash into the tenon I just cut so carefully. Carving these tapers will teach you a lot of control. I learned a lot. Now the bench portion is ready to be assembled. I put the seat on my low bench and just sit on it to hold it steady. I've taken my waist block and cut it into a 15-degree drilling guide. You don't need a protractor. You can use a speed square as a protractor, and I've got a video on how to do that on my new website, woodworkforhumans.com. I'm going to clamp that 15-degree guide along my 45-degree sightline and drill my leg holes. I'm using a 1 1/4 inch spade bit. And that's the same bit I used to lay out my tenons. I'll drill all my holes, test fit my legs, and cut some wedges from a scrap of hardwood. I'm kind of summarizing the leg installation process because I covered it in detail just a few weeks ago for the Lightweight Traveler bench, and you can look at that video for more details on installing the legs. That bench is a bit different from this one because I built it from lightweight spruce. In order to beef up the construction, I installed battens across the bottom of the bench and staked the legs through the bench and the battens for a deeper, sturdier connection. Because I'm using tough southern yellow pine for my shave horse, I don't need those battens, but you might want to add them if you're making your shave horse from a lightweight wood. A heavy mallet might snap your wedges, so I tap them in with a leg, and then go to the heavy mallet just to finish them off. When you run out of legs, you can use your waist block to get the wedges started. On this build, some of my wedges didn't tighten up the joint as much as I wanted them to, so I just took a scrap of steel, laid it along the back of each wedge, and pounded them deeper into the tenon. I should have cut my wedges a little bit longer and fatter, but sometimes you don't figure that out until it's too late, and you need to improvise. In this case, everything worked out fine. Since my low bench and my shave horse look really similar, a lot of people are going to be saying, wait a second, why don't you just take the shave horse parts and put them on your low bench? Well, I don't want to do that because if you look at the clamp and the platform here, they really cut down the usable space on the shave horse. I really like having my low bench for planing and for handling long boards, and then I can go over to my shave horse for carving or spoke shave work. Now, you might also be thinking, well, wait a second, why don't you just take these parts here and make them like removable parts so you can switch this back and forth between bench and shave horse? That's fine, except I hate convertible tools. I find you waste a ton of time switching back and forth. I'd rather just be able to move from one bench to another as my work demands it. Of course, this is your project, so if you'd like to make this a combination bench and shave horse, that's totally fine. Now, if you're only going to use your shave horse outside, the legs don't need to be very even, but I plan on using mine in the shop, at least some of the time. So I put it on my flat workbench and use a combination of wedges under the legs and a cheap level to get the seat parallel to the floor. Then I've got a little pencil glued to a scrap of wood, and I use that to trace along the bottom of each leg. When I cut along those lines, the bench will sit level on any flat surface. After I trim the legs and flush cut the tops of the tenons, the main structure is done, and I can build the moving parts. A really important part of your shave horse is this platform, because it holds the work. The platform needs to be hinged down at the far end, but it needs to move freely on the end towards you, because it has to be height adjustable. You adjust the height of the platform by moving this block in and out, and that adjusts the opening in your clamp and lets you work with different size stock. My platform is made from 2 pieces of wood, a piece of 2x4 and a piece from my 2x12. I put my eye bolt on one end and sketch a rectangle around it. Then I saw along those lines, and when I screw the 2 boards together, I get a notch that fits my eye bolt. With the platform up on edge, I drill all the way through one side, and just a little ways into the other side. To finish the platform, I install the eye bolt at the end of the bench with 2 nuts and 2 washers. I had a dowel laying around, so I just used that as a pin to tie everything together. But you can also carve a pin from a scrap of wood. Mine is just held in by friction, and it works great. Okay, I just have to make the clamp. I'm going to start by sawing my waist block to the width of my bench. That way, I can clamp my last 2 pieces of 2x4 at the bottom, and they'll be parallel and held in place. This is a really crucial part of the build. I've got the main bench assembled and I have my platform done. The last thing I have to do is get the clamp figured out. And even if you're following a really good set of plans, you have to double check your clamp and the way it works, and also make sure it fits your body, because different people are different sizes. I'm a little bit above average in height. So what I've done is I've got my 2 uprights clamped with my spacer block so they're the correct distance apart, and I've got my platform up on a piece of waste wood so that I know that it's about at the right height. And let me just test that. I'm going to come in with my draw knife and imagine I'm working on this piece, and it's a pretty standard, this is like a chair component. This is a piece I could expect to work on. And as I'm getting in here with the draw knife, that feels about right. It's comfortable, and you can see my arms are more or less forming a 90-degree angle. That's where I want the top of any workpiece to go. I can shift this platform up and down by moving my support block back and forth, so that's all fine. Now what I want to do is locate the pin that's actually going to hold the work. This is a little offcut from my pin stock, and I'm going to put that on top of my pin and try to get a feel for where I want it to grab the work. What I'd like is to be able to slide work in underneath that pin really easily, but then only kick forward on my pedal just a little bit. I don't want to have to extend my leg way far out. That's going to put me in an uncomfortable working position where I'm more likely to get injured. So I can sort of figure out with this scrap where it should go, and then I could lift it up maybe a 1/2 inch or 3/4, so I have room to slide the piece underneath it, and that's going to help me get in here and mark the location. Now this is my actual pin stock, and because my 2 uprights are correctly spaced, I can just lay my pin stock on top and trace around, and then I've got the shoulders, so I'll have the correct spacing when I go to install the pin. Taking a few minutes and kind of mocking up this whole setup and actually getting a feel for how it works with your body, well, that's going to make sure that your final piece is ergonomic and easy to use, and you're not going to get injured. The pin is just a piece of wood with a long, round tenon on either end. You can make it using the temporary Shavehorse setup. The draw knife removes the bulk of the waste, and a broad chisel does the paring. Your final fit should be snug, but rotate smoothly. Once the pin is installed in the uprights, you can trace around the outside shoulder and drill through right next to those lines. We'll add pegs to those holes in a minute. I have to take 1 inch off the bottom of my arms, so they'll swing freely and not hit the ground. Then I cut a simple bridle joint into the ends, drop in my pedal, and run in some screws. Oh, and you see how my platform is up and out of the way? That's dumb, because it needs to be in place before you install your clamp. Put it down now, and you'll only have to install your clamp once. I left my platform up, so I had to do it twice. I chose simple lag screws to hold the arms to the bench. A more traditional design would use a long wooden pin all the way through, but these screws are cheap and very durable. You can see me adding a bit of paste wax to the threads, which makes them much easier to install. The last step is to make this block, which supports the platform and lets you adjust the height. You should still have 2 pieces labeled block, and we're just going to screw those together. One of them needs to be trimmed and then rotated 90 degrees so that you're screwing into side grain instead of end grain. I also chopped some quick roundovers on the sharp corners. The completed platform gives me all the height adjustment I need, just by sliding it back and forth. The block and platform aren't under much pressure, so screwed construction is just fine. Now that we have the horse assembled, we can split a couple pieces and gently shave them into tapered pegs. You can see I have the work elevated on a little piece of scrap, and when the platform gets in the way, I shift everything all the way to one side so I can work off the corner and get a nice radius. The completed pegs tighten up the top of my clamp nicely, and they're easy to take out if I ever need to disassemble the horse. Oh, one last detail. My flat-sided pin is really good at holding square stock, but not so great for anything round or irregular. That's an easy fix. I'm just going to glue a piece of scrap to one face and saw a little notch right in the middle. Now I can just rotate that notched section down anytime I need to hold something round, like this dowel. This is a traditional feature, and you find it on most old Shavehorses. Hopefully, this Shavehorse is just the beginning of a lot of green woodworking projects on this channel. Green woodwork is perfect because you can just do it from, well, logs by the side of the road. So it's right in line with our affordable woodwork for humans approach. And traditionally, the Shavehorse is the first green woodworking tool. You build this, and then you use it to build a bunch of other interesting tools, like a pole lathe or a riving brake. Those are great projects, and I hope we get to them down the line. Now, if you want to build your own Shavehorse, we have a fantastic set of plans. They are some of the longest and most detailed we've ever done, and we're really proud of them. We also have great plans for the lightweight traveler workbench, which is excellent if you want to get started in outdoor woodworking or if you just need a portable workbench. You can pick both those plans up at rexkrueger.com/store or click the link down in the description. And if you like stuff like this, I highly recommend Mortise and Tenon magazine. It's a great publication filled with period woodwork, green woodworking, and a lot of stuff like I cover on this channel. Now, the magazine is a little expensive to subscribe to, but they've also got a YouTube channel, which is free because it's a YouTube channel. But unfortunately, they don't have a ton of subscribers, which is crazy because they've been putting out a lot of good content recently. So go on over to the Mortise and Tenon YouTube channel and subscribe to those guys. That's going to encourage them to keep making high-quality videos. And honestly, I want to see them, so it's kind of selfish on my part. Anyway, just like usual, this video is only possible because of my patrons on Patreon. They are the amazing community that just supports all the work I do. If you'd like to be part of that community, go on over to patreon.com/RexKrueger and check out all the rewards and early access I have for the people who make these videos possible. I'm looking forward to a bunch more green woodwork and outdoor projects, and I hope you'll come along with me. Thanks for watching.